Hey guys, this is John, and I am playing Bayo in the 15-minute pool on ICC. Bayo is 1858. Let's check his stats. He has a peak rating of 1979, achieved in October, and we are going to have a Benko Gambit. I assume, if he plays a6. Okay, I'll play e3. I like this line for white. I'm a reformed Benko Gambit player myself, and I don't know, I just, at some point, got sick of playing it. It wasn't like quite solid enough, I decided. So now I'm mainly a Benko Gambit hunter. So I know the accepted lines, b takes a6 on move number 5 are critical. But I think declining the pawn is a pretty practical idea for most people. So that's why I like it. I'll play knight f3 here. This is just a good developing move. And I'm trying to get him to take on b5 so I can take with my bishop in one fell swoop. For now, though, I'm going to play rook a3. This is a mysterious move in this line, or it seems to be for a lot of people. Basically, it's better to have your rook defended on this square. It gives you the option sometimes, if they take on b5, of taking with your a-pawn. Moreover, there's no problems on the long diagonal involving tactics. Because that bishop on g7, I know there's a lot of traffic in the way between that and the rook on a1, but there's always the possibility of some tactics. So knight bd7, I think I'm going to play e4 right now. Yeah, let's go e4. Still don't want to develop my bishop. I feel like I can delay that for a few more moves. Well, not a few more moves, but at least one more move. It can sometimes evolve into a little battle, whether he wants to take on b5 or not. So we're doing some shadow boxing right now. Problem is he kind of runs out of useful moves to make. Knight e8 is interesting. I could take on a6 if I want. And when he takes with his bishop, just swap everything. So he's opening his bishop and he's also bringing this knight to c7 is the plan with that move. Yeah, I'm pretty tempted just to take on a6. So if I take, he takes the bishop. I take, rook takes, castle. Well, this looks like a typical position. He could also play b takes a6, knight c7. That might be his idea. Regardless, I think the time has come to capture. Just thinking if I can extract any benefit from delaying it further. I don't think so. Because if I play like bishop e2 and he takes, I can't take with the pawn because rook takes rook, b takes a3, and then bishop takes c3, I lose a piece. Okay, I thought he was going to play knight c7 there, but he actually does this. Okay, so that makes me happy that I can get my bishop exchanged and I didn't have to take a detour to like c4 or something. So I'll just castle now. We'll see what he does. I'm expecting some knight moves. Like knight c7 would make sense. Knight b6, maybe trying to come into c4. Now, queen e2 would attack the rook on a6. That's useful. Bishop g5 is disruptive. I like bishop g5 because it makes him think twice about how to defend that pawn. Let's do that. It's just a good move to slow him down. And if he plays h6, I'm happy to play bishop h4. Totally happy to do that. Yeah, we'll go bishop h4. Keep an eye on the e7 pawn. So I'm restricting his queen's movement for now. Wow, bishop f6. Usually they're not too eager to trade off their Benko Gambit bishop. Good chance I'll just be taking it. He might take with his pawn. That's something I've done before in these positions. It's usually, even though it fortifies e5 really well, you lose control over d6. If he does take with the pawn, I'll probably play knight d2 and try to bring the knight over to c4. Knight takes. I think rook e1. We're both playing pretty fast, I realize this, but in my opinion, I haven't had to make too many tough decisions, and the game is going well for me at the moment, so I'm happy to keep playing quickly and bank my time for a situation that I might need it. I really disagree with his bishop f6 move. And if you're a Benko Gambit player, you have to hold on and value that bishop because that's like your trump card on the diagonal. It helps attack the b2 pawn and the knight on c3. It exerts a lot of influence on that a1 h8 diagonal. A little tough to find a plan for him now because he wants to bring his heavy pieces over to the A and B files. But if he focuses too much on that, I'm ready to break through with e5 pretty quickly. Granted, I'm slowed down by the fact that my d5 pawn could be lost if I push it right now. Queen a8 seems like a good move. I think that's a good option for him. So how am I going to make e5 happen? Well, I can play queen d2 to start, just to attack the h6 pawn. If I play queen d2, I'm depriving my knight of that square, but I don't think I want to go knight d2 to c4 anyways. Yeah, let's start with this. We'll just gain a tempo on that pawn. I'm envisioning some scenarios where, like, if his king comes to g7 and later the third rank gets open, maybe I can swing the rook over. That would entail me moving both of these knights. So it's a long-term idea, but I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think king g7 will be played. I wonder if I want my rook on a3 anymore. I'm thinking about playing rook a1 to d1 in order to add some oomph to e5 and further defend this pawn. Could start moving my kingside pawns. So let's say I play rook a1, he goes rook b8, rook a d1. He can play rook a b6 and attack b2. I don't like the look of that. I could play rook e1. I hate to do that after I played rook or I could, rook d1 in order to play e5, but I hate to do that after having played rook e1 just a moment ago. What about e5? Let's say knight f takes e5, and then knight e4, playing for an attack. That would be very interesting. Perhaps unsound, but interesting. You know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to play h4. I think this is a good long-term move in that I don't have to worry about a back rank threat in the future. And it might cause him to weaken himself further on the king side. Like maybe he'll play h5 if he's scared. Okay, so now that rook b8 is played, I feel a little bit better about playing e5. Because if pawn takes and then knight takes, I'm hitting the pawn on f7. So that's a positive. Now, the only thing is if e5, knight f takes, what are we doing in that case? H5 maybe? Just softening him up. I just have this desire to attack right now. You know what I could also play is queen f4, which would threaten e5. Although my b2 pawn is weak, I have to keep that in mind as well. I sort of feel that if I'm going to strike and create counterplay, it should be done now. Because if I wait a move, he might play rook a b6, and I might be forced to defend this pawn. So e5, knight f takes d5. let's say, e takes d6, rook takes d6, rook takes e7 I would have in that position. That's interesting. All right, it's a little bit speculative, but this seems very interesting. And for a fast game, I think it's okay. Yeah, and he instantly took. So now I'm going to take here. I want to see which way he takes back. Because rook takes looks pretty good because it x-rays my queen. But it does run into rook takes e7, exploiting the pin. Yeah, and he missed it. Okay, this could get good for me in a hurry. Because after I do this, just double checking. Yeah, after I do this, I'm also threatening rook takes c7, in addition to the obvious rook takes f7. So it's a cool move. Rook takes d6 was premature for him. I just kind of sensed like the way he was playing that he was setting himself up to miss something. He's playing very fast. He took. Okay, so we take here, attacking both knights. He's probably going to play one of them to d5. Yep, he does. So we're up a pawn. What to do now? Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. His queen is defending both the rook and the knight, but I can't find a way to exploit that. He's just almost overloaded. I think knight takes d5 would be the move in this position, but let's just see. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen d7 perhaps? Yeah, that looks tasty. Let's do that. Tentative plan. So knight takes is forced. He can't take with the queen. So queen d7 I'm thinking, which hits f7. He cannot play rook b7 because I win his knight on d5. He can play queen b7 though. How do I feel about a queen trade? Maybe not that great. Could just defend my b pawn somehow. Or rook d3. Rook d3 might be good. Yeah, how about rook d3? That leaves the a4 pawn unguarded, but I want to shake this knight on d5. That knight is giving me trouble. So how about this? Rook d3, knight b4, rook e3. Man, now I'm looking at knight g5 stuff too. There's like tactical opportunities galore here. What if rook d3, he plays rook d8? Then queen takes c5, he can take on a4, but I win his knight. So that's no good. All right, let's go rook d3. Looks sensible. See if he continues playing quickly. If knight b4, rook e3, he cannot take on a4 because I win his rook on b8. His position is just so loose, and I'm up a pawn. His knight doesn't have a stable square. With this last move, I'm trying to drive his knight even further away from civilization. His king side is just so barren. Yes, now rook e3, I'm thinking. His queen cannot take on a4, as I was elaborating on, because of queen takes b8. It's amazing how often time management is just like by far the biggest factor in how much resistance some of my opponents are putting up. I don't mean that to sound cocky, but like I'm playing a lot of low-rated opponents, right? And my expectation against these players is huge. But I really feel a lot of them are just missing chances because they're playing like so quick for no reason. Or they're only spending time when they get into a bad position. So it's just like unforced errors. Okay, what's up with knight g5? Knight g5 looks like it's almost crushing. Knight g5, h takes g5, h takes g5. I'm threatening rook h3. So, I don't know, king g8. Yeah, might not be quite enough for me. Rook h3, yeah, I don't know if I want to chance that. I'd rather set that up, take a move to set it up or something. h5 is probably good in this position. I could just take the pawn as well. Queen takes c5. Queen takes c5, queen takes a4, queen f8. I am coming into his position. Yeah, let's say queen d1, check, king h2. There's no queen d6. He might have some defense there, but it's looking grim. I'm under 5 minutes though, so I gotta hustle. Queen f6 was my other thought, but queen f6 runs into knight d5. It's too bad. Could simply play b3. h5 is probably good. h5 completely exposes his king. Knight e5. I'm spoiled for choice in this position, guys. That's really what's going on. I think queen takes c5 is simple enough. Queen takes c5, queen takes a4, queen f8, check. Or I could check and then take on b2 maybe. Let's go h5. Let's probe with that move. His pieces are so far away from his king. I gotta believe that his position's on the verge of collapse nearly. If I just poke it a little bit more. So if g5, I'm thinking maybe knight e5, threatening knight g4. Also knight takes f7 as a threat. Looks nice. He might have to play queen a6 or queen b8. Something like that. Otherwise, the threats around his king are... Like, he needs a queen trade. But if queen a6, I can play queen f8 again. So maybe queen b8. Queen b8, I have queen f6. Knight d5, queen f5 check. Is probably good. Yeah, he has that move, but I think this knight takes f7 resource is crushing. Let me just see, is knight g4 stronger? Knight g4, queen c6 maybe. Yeah, I think this is good. So if rook takes, then queen g6 check is the idea. The whole point behind this. So that means he needs to play queen c6 or queen a6. But on either of those moves, I can play queen f8 and threaten queen h8 mate. Or queen takes h6 check. I don't think he's making this out alive. I have 3 minutes left. Just bear that in mind. You see how that h4 move that I played on move 19 came in handy. It's nice when it works out like that. I just played it on general principles, but it's a move you play in the back of your head. You might be thinking, this pawn thrust might just probe his position. And also you get rid of your back rank threat, which comes in handy in a position like this. There's no queen a1, for instance. Yeah, see, this is just so typical. I hate to harp on this, but I hope you guys watching my videos, if anything, like those of you who watch the 15-minute videos a lot, I hope this underscores the importance of time management. This is the longest he's thought on a move in the game, and he's probably just lost here. No, don't think when you're already lost. You got to think proactively. You got to use your time before you get in this position. I know it's tough. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but I really think a big aspect of improving is improving your sense of danger and knowing when you have to allocate time to defense. You know, when you got to tell yourself, hey, this position looks pretty critical. I should probably spend some time. Because this game was not one-sided entirely. I mean, yeah, it turned out that way, but the position he had earlier was probably not that bad. You know, when I was trying to arrange e5, if he would have slowed down a little bit there, like maybe around the time I played h4 and assessed it a little bit, especially when I played e5. When I played e5, he chopped on d5, I took on d6, he played rook takes d6 like instantly. Didn't see rook takes e7 coming. So, like, that would have been just one example of a position where he should use time. Okay, this should be forced mate somehow. Queen takes h6, king g8, rook e8, king takes f7, queen f8 mate. Yeah. That's working.
Check.
Yep.
Check. Checkmate.
Okay, so I went up to 2367 because of this game. And let's have a look. So I like this line e3. I played it on my channel before. I don't think I played it in a standard game on my channel previously, but I definitely played it in some blitz games. It's just a good way to decline the Benko, and also you tend to get a development lead in the lines where they take on b5. I won't get into that now because I've shown it on previous videos, but basically if take and take, white can sometimes like favorably give back the pawn for a development lead. I guess I'll just show the line real quick.
Check.
Like, let's say queen a5, knight c3, bishop b7, bishop d2, x-raying the queen on a5, queen here. Now, white doesn't want to get too tied down to this pawn, so it's better to just develop. Knight f3, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes b5, runs into knight c7 check, so bishop takes d5 is forced. And now a4, and next move white will play bishop c3. Yeah, white has given the pawn back, but I think this is a nice position to play against almost anyone. I've had trouble from the black side in the Benko against the e3 line before, if white just gives back the pawn, doesn't try to hold on to the pawn for dear life. So that's why I like this variation. I think it's a good practical weapon. But he played the line where you try to delay the capture on b5. And as I said, I'm trying to play like many good moves here, especially this rook a3 move. It's a common move in this line. Many good moves without moving this bishop yet, just to see if he'll take on b5 voluntarily. e4. Looks kind of weird to play e3 and e4, but it's constructive. It's consistent with my strategy. So knight e8. I took on a6. Yeah, so I felt better about taking on a6 now because you know, his knight can't capture on a6. But maybe he should have thought about knight c7 with the goal of trying to make that knight recapture, because I thought that was the whole point of him going knight e8. But later on, this knight just returned to f6. So I think he should have done that and maybe try to capture with his knight. And he can sink the knight into b4. Probably would have been a better idea. Now bishop g5. So as I said, this is a valuable minor piece for him in the Benko Gambit. He shouldn't just part with that bishop for nothing. So h6, bishop h4. I really don't like bishop f6. I'd rather play rook e8 to defend the e-pawn in order to free up the queen and keep the bishop on board. Because he's simplifying. I've done this before in a game. I remember a game I lost to Yuri Shulman, Grandmaster Yuri Shulman in this line when I was black. And at one point, I had this idea to play bishop f6, and after bishop takes f6, take with my pawn. And I thought I was all cool because I was like, oh, you know, I'm fortifying the e5 square and I get the e-file for my rook. But it just turned out like I was down a pawn without too much counterplay because that bishop was so valuable. It's just vital to black's blueprint for counterplay in this line. So let's see if the computer agrees with that assessment. But yeah, it already likes white. Well, I guess this is like a pretty standard evaluation for this line. We all know computers are materialistic, so they're not going to evaluate openings like the Benko Gambit too kindly for black most of the time. But yeah, that seems to be a mistake. Bishop takes f6. Or, yeah, bishop f6. Rook e1. Maybe I should play knight d2. Maybe queen d2 isn't so good. It all depends on how effective my kingside attack is after queen d2. maybe I should go here and try to arrange f4 and let's say knight c4 and maybe a slower breakthrough in the center. The game continuation seemed okay too, though. Queen d2 here, now h4. I see the computer is not thrilled about this move. It doesn't think it's earth-shatteringly good, but I like it. It's just like a good probing and constructive move. It's a move I can look back and say, I'm glad I played that. Because I don't have to worry about a back rank threat. I make an attacking gesture. He's always going to have to think about h5. Maybe knight g5 is supported. You guys saw I was considering some lines later with knight g5. Okay, engine likes e5. Yeah, this was sort of a gamble by me, e5. Not a gamble, but it looks like I might be giving the pawn back, but it felt like the right thing to do because my entire position is geared up towards playing e5. So yes, he can take with the knight here, but after I take, he really should take with the pawn. Yeah, the computer indicates pawn takes. Oh, and the other thing was, I think I mentioned this, but I like playing e5 when his rook has already been committed to b8, because then f7 is undefended, and there's one less heavy piece around his king for defense. So that's why I played h4, rook b8, and then e5. So he takes d5. Oh yeah, h5 would have been interesting here too. The computer likes that move, just probing again when he doesn't have the option of knight takes h5. So take on d6, he took with a rook, yep. And you see how fast this move was played? Something like 7 seconds. Rook takes d6. Hardly any time. I mean, yeah, he just missed rook takes e7, but he has to recognize that this position's dangerous. Like, I think for myself, if I flip this around, I'm worrying about my king. You have no pieces in on the h-file through the e-file. It's just your king and the lone pawns. So, black has to take care in this position. It's very important, because now I think he's basically busted after this move. Yeah, knight takes e7, because if he defends the f-pawn, then he runs into this, using the same tactical idea, the pin. So, take, let's just see how the computer rates my play. Yeah, rook d3, attack the knight, I like this move. Rook e3 staying active. Actually slightly prefers, likes rook e3, okay. And it's nice that his queen cannot capture on a4 because it's needed for defense of the b8 rook. He played this. Knight g5 is working. I couldn't quite calculate it. This is a cool idea. And the main point is, like, if he takes, I just calmly take back. And I'm threatening rook h3, and then queen f6 and rook h8. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I thought king g8 could be played. Rook h3. Okay. Here, let me turn off the engine for a second. Yeah, I think when I briefly looked at this position, I don't remember if exactly I thought maybe this move was playable, but how can white refute that move? You can pause your recording if you want to figure it out, if you haven't found it already. White's move and win. Okay, the answer is this deflection or attraction idea.
Check.
Rook h8 check. And after king takes, I win the queen. So, yeah, it seems like even though this looks like a slow-mo attack, he can't stop me from coming into this square. And he's dead. Again, notice how all his pieces are just bunched over on the queen side. His king is laid bare to the elements. If he plays queen a6, trying to defend that way, then I have force mate.
Check.
Check, and then queen h8.
Checkmate.
Yeah, so... Well, that would have been a nice move, knight g5. I mean, I'm not surprised I didn't see it all the way, because I kind of sensed that this might work, but with the time situation, I thought about it a little bit and just played h5, which also seems pretty good. So if he takes the pawn instead, I can do something similar. I think knight e5 is still good. Granted, I don't have this square available, but with my queen and my knight and my rook all coordinating against his king, I think this is strong. With the open g-file, I might even have options like rook g3 and queen f6. So, yeah, you can see the eval from the computer is just overwhelming already. So h5, he did this. Yeah, knight e5. It looks like it's beyond hope for him. he might be able to grovel for a little bit. But yeah, I saw this nice tactic. Queen b8 runs into that. And again, if rook takes, well, I guess rook takes, I can win his queen. So he'd be forced to play this ending, which is losing down 2 pawns for nothing. But maybe queen b8 is the best practical chance. Probably is. It's probably the only move. He did this, and then I took here. Ah, so there's some way he can defend, huh? He played what? Queen here and just got mated. So queen a1, king h2, queen here. Why does that work after queen h8 or queen f8? It doesn't work. The computer was lying. Yeah, because I'm threatening queen h8 and queen takes h6. And if queen here, I think just rook f3 is good. Queen g7. Yeah, I'm not mating him immediately, but my knight is defended. Queen e4 check is a threat. Again, he's not surviving. Okay, so I don't think there's a defense in this position.
Check. Check.
Okay.
Checkmate.
Yeah, and then I had that forced mate. So, once again, I think this game underscores the importance of time management. You guys don't want to be one of these players who only thinks when they have a bad position. They only think reactively. You want to think proactively. It's even more so important in these short time control games, but it's also important in OTB games as well. So, never play fast just for the sake of playing fast. I mean, your default speed should be as fast as you feel comfortable with, and as fast as you're capable of making good decisions. But if the storm clouds start brewing around your king, especially, you have to be willing to slow down and take your time, because it's probably the #1 time management mistake I see people make is they don't spend times in positions that are dangerous for them, or conversely, they don't spend time in positions where they might have opportunities themselves. They just play an autopilot move. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I will be back tomorrow with another standard game. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.